Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're just landing here. I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I do mostly political readings, as most of you know, and specifically I try to do a schedule so you know when to anticipate a video Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm taping this early Friday morning, and a few things to get into today that my guys, that Spirit led me to talk to you all about and go and get some insight on. Especially around Kristi Noem, right? We understand who's the Illinois representative. I made a note. Robin Kelly out of Illinois is filing has stated their intent to file articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. We all have heard the absolutely ridiculous statements, the outrageous, cowboy hat hiding her face. I think she's been taking some notes from Melania around that. But just the whole way that this was handled, in addition to the fact that she really did put Frump, I'll call him Frump, she put Frump in an interesting position because apparently he issued his statement in regards to Renee Good without prior to seeing the video based on Kristi Noem's input to him, right? She's on the horn to him saying, look, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. He was run over with her car, da, 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 da. And clearly that is not what happened. And Frump watched the video in front of New York Times reporters and sort of had to dance around that issue, still not and never will say the right thing or have have an appropriate reaction. But he realized that the information he had been given was not correct. He and his team, they realized that what Kristi Noem said to him was clearly not the case. All right. That said, I want to take a look at Spirit. Let's go to Spirit and see if there's some juice there, if there's some meat there, if in fact Congress is going to, grow enough of a backbone, right? War Powers Act, we see that they stepped up around that. Some other things, there seems to be some momentum. Spirit said there would be resistance and more Republicans joining, a bipartisan effort to stop some of this. But is there enough to actually take on Kristi Noem and get her out of there? Knowing as well, I got a note here, Spirit reminded me, very important. We do have the government funding coming up by the end of the month, right? They got to get that through. And now the Dems are saying, we want ICE defunded, or this $800 billion package that was passed last year through the big bill. They're saying, no, if this is what ICE is doing, we can't sign on to this. Will there be enough GOP support behind that to impact ICE's funding as part of the government package? So let's take a look at that first. Spirit. Will Kristi Noem, will the articles of impeachment get filed, and will Kristi Noem be impeached? Will Kristi Noem be impeached? Is she going to lose her office? Is she going to lose her position? Kristi Noem, is she going to get impeached? We have the King of Cups. The Ace of Swords comes behind it. I'm not going to ignore that. This is J.D. Vance trying to save her, but this is also the articles of impeachment being filed against her. She was never liked. We know that. But Congress, so many members, the GOP members of Congress have been stupefied, this whole past year in going along with everything. But this seems to be something that has gotten them stirred up, and the Two of Wands moving forward to figure out how do we move to get rid of her, essentially, is what I'm seeing here. Will she in fact be impeached? Will she be removed? Will Kristi Noem be removed? Will she be removed? The Four of Wands, that feels like a celebration. That also feels like a timing element, you all. I don't know procedurally how long it would take to move those articles through to vote on her impeachment. But that Four of Wands is a very celebratory energy. Is she out of there? Is Kristi Noem out of there? The Chariot, she's out of there, you all. Don't know timing. But the key here, which is really powerful, is the tide has definitely turned against her. And the GOP recognizes that the way ICE is being run is completely, it's a rogue agency. It's just beyond anything that any of them can somehow justify. And JD Vance getting out there yesterday and telling these agents, sending the messaging to ICE saying, don't worry about a thing, you've got immunity. Clearly, they do not. Clearly, the DHS's agency's guidelines around moving vehicles says point blank period, you do not fire on a moving vehicle, right? And JD Vance is like, don't worry about it. You have immunity. Here's why I think that was the case. We know that Governor Walz has put the Minnesota National Guard on alert. I don't think he's deployed them yet, at least as of this taping, but he's put them on alert to be prepared to come in and offset and protect Minnesotans against ICE, essentially. And that's setting up a really interesting dynamic there. Now we're seeing calls going out for let me pick these up, going out for other states to be prepared to do the same thing, to be prepared to call on their National Guard to protect citizens in their states from this awful behavior. And I do want to also acknowledge, I know that the Renee Good killing, set the internet on fire, got so many people mobilized. We've seen the protests around the country and even outside of the country, as it should be, keep it going. But I do want to acknowledge, many people have mentioned there have been other deaths as a result of ICE's actions. Specifically, I want to acknowledge and pay respect to Keith Porter out of California, apparently was killed, U.S. citizen, killed on New Year's Eve, I believe. Don't know the details of it exactly, and apparently there was not video, or at least video not released, but that story was not covered, so want to pay respects to that. We also understand that 2 people were wounded, shot by agents in Portland yesterday. So this is amping up. Spirit is saying, and we know on a practical level, this is amping up the issue of pressing charges and ICE agents facing prosecution for these actions, for, going after citizens, or even not, just killing people, or shooting and wounding people. The key that I'm getting is elections, you all. They want to amp this up with turning ICE agents loose around the country because they want to encourage or discourage people from voting in the midterms. They know what's coming. Will states employ or deploy their own National Guard forces to counteract that, to make sure that citizens are kept safe now in the present moment, but also as we move towards later in the year, the midterms? We have the 5 of Cups. That's the emotional toll that all of this is taking on people around the country. The 5 of Wands, interesting, 2 5s come up back to back. 5s being, for those of you who may not know tarot that well, 5s is a real challenging energy, but it's also where things reach a certain head, where something has to happen. The needle needs to get pushed one way or another. And 5 of Wands is, it says here on this card, even, I'll read you the little keywords it gives. It says discord and physical changes. Discord and physical changes. So that, for me, is set up. I also see this 5 of Cups as members of the National Guard in the various states. Yes, this is what they have to do if they are called on to stand in, but to actually be in a space of having to protect citizens against federal agents. That's 10 of Swords. I knew it was coming. I knew something like it was coming. That's extremely stressful for National Guard members. Will we see that happen? The 6 of Pentacles. Yes, I don't know if it's broadly, like many states signing on to that, but yes, this is something that, because basically governors in various states are saying you're forcing our hand. We cannot simply sit back and allow you to terrorize our citizens. We have to use some measure at our disposal. Local law enforcement, fine, and we've seen local law enforcement in many cities. King of Wands, push back against ICE. Let me finish my sentence. King of Wands. King of Wands. Is this Newsom? Is this Newsom leading a charge to do that? Nine of Swords. Who's going to lead the charge? And the Four of Cups. So there's and the Ace of Pentacles. Slow rolling it, but it feels like there's at least some discussion, especially Spirit's reminding me in the Governors Association, the National Governors Association. There are conversations that are being had around the viability of that. We also know that costs money. States would have to be able to fund that. The Queen of Wands. This is someone in Congress. I just heard Elizabeth Warren. Of course, Jasmine Crockett, AOC. These are women in Congress willing to support it. That's the Ace of Pentacles. There are women in Congress who are willing to support the governors in perhaps congressional representatives supporting the governors of some of these states to deploy National Guard. Spirit, will the midterms be protected by National Guard if necessary? Will the midterm elections be protected? The Knight of Wands, there will be movement to do so. And the Five of Swords, how to give Americans the messaging of why exactly it is necessary. Because what they don't want to do, I get it, what they don't want to do, especially in this Knight of Wands energy, so things can, remembering as well, we're going into the year of the fire horse, right? So there's going to be action. There's going to be people ready to take it to the streets. There's going to be people ready to amp it up, even within these agencies, if things get out of hand. And so that's that Five of Swords, is being very careful about making sure that people understand this is not about leftist radical taking over the country, all of that energy, which then justifies their actions. It's got to stay within the realm of protection, protecting people, safety, public safety. Two of Cups, exactly. It's got to be, there's got to be a partnership. And I think that's part of the plan as well around that Five of Swords. Governors who consider deploying state National Guard are going to have to do so with their messaging to appear that they are actually trying to partner with ICE or with DHS to increase public safety. But on the flip side of that, what they're going to be doing is making sure that they've got something to counter these efforts. These orders essentially that they're being given to amp it up, make sure that people are afraid. If they see you coming, don't record, they'll be afraid to use their phones or question you or resist or band together to stop what you're doing. Yeah, that's the plan. It ain't gonna work, but they've got to be really, really strategic. The governors have got to be really, really strategic about how they go about it. All right. Talking about the internet is undefeated, you all. The FBI, we know, said we're not going to help Minnesota at all. No, you're on your own. We're not giving you any information. We're not going to help in any investigation where you're concerned. We're over here. We're just going to do our thing, close ranks, right? And not even reveal his name. And I knew, as many of you did, I'm sure. We knew when we heard that. We were like, okay. We got pictures. If we got pictures, the internet is undefeated, y'all, right? The internet is undefeated. So we know this, what's his name? Jonathan Ross has been identified. We know that Keith Ellison, a state attorney general out of Minnesota, and the county attorney from Minneapolis, what's her name? Mary Moriarty, I should say. So they are talking, okay, fine, we're going to proceed with a local investigation. We're going to do what we need to do on our end. And I'm going to ask point blank, is Jonathan Ross going to face charges? Because again, going back to JD Vance yesterday coming out, don't worry about a thing. We got you covered. Not on a state level. Federal immunity, we know this, right? Not on a state level. So is Jonathan Ross going to face charges, you all, for the killing Renee Good? Will Jonathan Ross face charges in regards to Renee Good? 3 of Swords. He sees it coming. He sees it coming. You know what was interesting about Spirit just put it in my mind as well, y'all. You know what was interesting about that video as well, as horrific as it is? Did you see the way that when Renee Good was shot and the car, I guess, it sped off because she wasn't in control. So it sped off, it hits another car, it stops. All of the other agents that were right there by Ross, they backed up and went the other way. They did not run toward the vehicle to try and see what happened or help or any. They backed off, and there was one in particular. You saw him kind of ushering, like, get back, don't go in the direction of that. They knew the moment it happened. Against regulations in the DSHS guidelines, the moon and the 3 of Swords, this guy, Jonathan Ross, knows he's cooked. Will he be prosecuted? 7 of Pentacles. They've got to, I feel like this is Moriarty, the attorney for Minneapolis. Of course, Keith Ellison as well. And others who work with them in their respective departments are gathering as much evidence. They are going to launch an investigation, and they already have done so. Will they gather enough evidence? Will they bring charges? Will the state of Minnesota or the city of Minneapolis bring charges against Jonathan Ross, Spirit? Will they bring charges? Ace of Cups. Yeah. And he knows it. Again, it started out with that 3 of Swords and the moon. He knows he's cooked. And which is why, again, stands to reason. If the Department of Homeland Security, if everybody thought they had it on lock to protect him, why hide the event? Why ice out, pardon the pun, why shut out Minnesota state officials? Why do that? If you know that that your guy did what he was supposed to do. There's the King of Swords. I'm getting Walls, Tim Walls in that. What is he going to do, Spirit? With the Empress. So, and this is so in alignment with who we know Governor Walls to be. The Empress energy feels like he's not going to, and he hasn't so far, lead in a very fiery, go after them, grind their butts. I can't remember his name, the mayor of Minneapolis, who came out and said what he said, and get the F out of here, but like he was lit, and in every way that people wanted and aligned with him and stood beside him and being lit. And I also understand there's some push and momentum now around him running for governor now that we know Tim Walz is going to step down. So keep your eye on that mayor of Minneapolis. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. But that's some energy around that as well. Governor Walz is going to try and de-escalate. He's put the National Guard on alert, Minnesota National Guard on alert, but as far as I know, as of this taping, he hasn't deployed them yet. But he is really trying to not play into the hands of escalating something that could be perceived as trying to fight the government, because then he plays right into their hands to continue to do this horrible, misinformation campaign about what's really happening in Minnesota and other states and cities. The 4 of Wands. He wants to finish his term, and the 8 of Pentacles, mastery. He wants to finish his term. Governor Walz wants to finish his term doing his absolute best and using his skills as a politician, as a teacher, as a Minnesotan, to de-escalate this situation at the same time seeing justice served. So he is going to lend his support to the investigative efforts by the state, if that's Ellison, and certainly by the county attorney Moriarty. He's going to lend his support. He's going to give them whatever resources they need to launch their investigation and go after Jonathan Ross. I think he's in trouble, as he should be. Page of Pentacles. It's already underway. It's already in motion. Things are already being written. Communications have already been had. Local officials in Minnesota, in specifically Minneapolis, are gonna proceed with this investigation, and there will be so much information that they will be given, certainly by bystanders and eyewitnesses, videos, willingness to testify, anything they need. Whereas on the other end of that, to the extent that there can be resistance for any sort of federal, because absolutely no. Spirit just said, Fefe, cut that, because we already know on the federal end, they're not going to launch a proper investigation. They're trying to protect him, right? So to the extent that people are going to be called in or whatever to give testimony or whatever around from the federal end of things, I don't even see a lot of that happening. Spirit's saying they want to try and move on to the next thing. But local investigation is going to be full-fledged, and they are going to have all the help, resources, people volunteering information, videos, anything that they have to help in those efforts. They are going to get it. So Ross is in trouble. The last thing that Spirit led me to talk to you all about today, let's go to the cards and see what comes. All right. I might be tripping a little bit here. Bear with me, y'all. But is Trump really trying to turn the White House into a mausoleum? I'm kid you not. My guides have been like, it's a mausoleum. It'll be a mausoleum. It'll be a mausoleum. And I'm like, isn't a mausoleum where you put the deceased? And they were like, yeah, it'll be a mausoleum. Okay. So after all the changes that have been already done, the whole East Wing, now we understand there are plans. Trump has been meeting with the architect to, I don't know if it's going to be demolish the West Wing. What we're seeing is supposedly add some addition on the roof of the West Wing, but additional changes there. So it ain't just about the ballroom. It's about an entire overhaul. He was bragging about, to these New York Times reporters, Trump was bragging about the roof of this addition, supposedly only addition. We heard that in the East Wing too, didn't we? That whatever he's planning for the West Wing, that the roof of it would have something like 4-inch or 5-inch, some kind of protective shield that no weapons could penetrate. That's what he's saying. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that at almost 80 years old? Can't be elected again. Why? Why would you do that? You don't care about anybody else's protection. Why would you do that? And why in the West Wing? Spirit. Ace of Wands, right at the bottom. All right? Momentum. It's certainly a thought. Spirit. Oh my goodness. Spirit. Is Trump planning to turn that White House into something akin to a mausoleum? Is he trying to stay there one way or another? 4 of Swords. It's going through his mind because he sees the White House as his and only his. He doesn't, the people's house, clearly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done what he's done so far. He sees it as his property. Does he want to turn it into a mausoleum? Is he planning to stay there one way or another? The Wheel of Fortune, y'all. Like destiny, like fate. Because where else is he going to go? Right? Mar-a-Lago? and the high priestess. Wow. This feels like the afterlife. And this because we know that the high priestess operates as a bridge between spirit and earth, right? But also is about secrets. Also can be secretive. Also not wanting to reveal his true fears around his own mortality, but planning for it in the meantime. Spirit, please show me just in like plain, I can get it. Why is he making all of these changes to the White House? Bottom line, why? What does he want? Strength. He owns it. He owns it, and he wants it to be a reflection. Strength ruled by Leo, Leo ruled by the sun. Show, all about me, all about what I've done. He wants to turn it into, they keep saying mausoleum, but of course with his name on it. Like completely make it about him. The Two of Pentacles. But how does he go about that? I love the labyrinth design on that card. How does he go about that? That's been his hang up. And also remember, telling everybody, but everything that I'm doing here, I'm paying for. The taxpayer isn't paying a dime. Really? Really? Like, how can that even be true? Everything that you do, it comes down to the American people paying for it. Everything that you do comes down to that. So, and then he made the comment, I had a note here, I just looked down and saw, nothing can stop me except my morality, my own mind. Nothing can stop me except my morality, my own mind. If, you know what, I'm being led to, I knew I pulled it out for a reason. I don't often read with Lenormand. I don't consider myself, a Lenormand reader. I know the cards. So what I'm about to do is not a standard Lenormand reading. I just want to say that in case I have Lenormand readers out there. I just want to pull the energy. I know in general, I know what these cards stand for in general. Of course, what's interesting about Lenormand reading is you connect the cards, they tell that story. But I'm asking energetically, what does he want? What is he doing with the White House? What is his point? Is it to stay there forever? Does he want to turn it into a mausoleum? Essentially, a de facto mausoleum. Mice eating away at it. And this is also, Spirit is pointing out to his dementia, his mind being slowly, eaten away. And he feels, it's interesting. He doesn't feel safe in Mar-a-Lago in terms of something enduring. I think he sees Mar-a-Lago either being taken over by his children or something where ultimately what he's done there, he doesn't feel will last. But he feels like as an institution, something around the White House is where he feels like it makes a bigger statement than Mar-a-Lago. To change the White House and make it his own and leave his lasting imprint on it, even as he declines, that's his goal. He feels like that would be a bigger take. The child, this is a childlike mind. He wants what he wants. It's a tantrum. And also this is about his children. Making the White House something that is a legacy, not just for him, but for his clan, to the extent that he even cares. And dog, loyalty. But who stands up for him? Who stands up for him? This is some sort of obsession that he has with who will love him in the end. Like what Spirit is saying, you all, is like the White House being some emblem of love for him that he will never get from people. And there's the mountain, but he will be blocked. Or the effort to make it so will be blocked. And the bear, because the people are going to want to protect. He wants protection. That's one reason why he's doing all of this, talking about the 4-inch glass that nothing can penetrate, even his remains, if in fact that's where he wants to be or is planning to be kept, his remains. He wants to make sure that he can't be desecrated. He is very afraid of, and that's part of that mountain as well. And, a hurdle. He is very afraid of his place of where he is deceased, his interment or wherever, being desecrated. And we have the book. So how does he do it? He's really looking for, but I also feel like this is by the book. This is Constitution. This is the resistance by people to, no matter what he does or what he manages to pull off, it will be undone. It will be corrected. It will be rectified. And there's the anchor holding. He is scratching and clawing for security. He is extremely afraid between the anchor coming and that bear, you all. He is extremely afraid for his safety. And whether that is his own, like what's happening here, whether that is what he sees coming globally, he brushes everyone off as he could give a flip that, Canada Carney and Scheinbaum and the EU leaders, like he keeps, and Jinping, he keeps making these noises, certainly even Putin to an extent, that he doesn't care what anybody says or thinks. He said, the only thing that matters is my own morality, my own mind, right? It ain't true. That man lives in some intense fear, and that fear is increasing, especially with everything else that's going on. And he sees the tide turning with the GOP as well. All right. I hope that was helpful. Hope it gave you some things to think about, maybe some clarity around some things. Let me know what you think about that Mausoleum piece. I was tripping a little bit on that, but there's something about keeping it and making it his forever. That's a part, because why do all of this? And you know that your time is up at some point, right? All right, you all take really good care of yourselves. Stay grounded, stay strong, stay loving out there, right? And as we say our new 2026 closing, remember, sky above you, right? Vast, protective, angels, God, source, goddess, right? Sky above you, earth beneath you, your foundation, solid, togetherness, right? People, global, earth beneath you, and soul within you, all right? Eternal, infinite, loving, powerful. Nothing can touch your soul. Nothing can touch your soul, all right? Sky above you, earth beneath you, soul within you. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good weekend. Bye.